Well, welcome to the big inaugural show of The Right Hook. I am Steve Hook, your host, and I'm thrilled to be with you here on X American News, Rumble, Facebook, wherever you're checking us out. You may know me from Del Beccaro and Hook, which is a show that I co-host with my buddy Tom Del Beccaro every Saturday, 7 p.m. on X American News and other platforms. And I just figured, you know what, I got the time. So from now on, every Wednesday and Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be doing the show live. So we are live. This is not pre-recorded or any of that, which is cool because it means that I can interact with people that are streaming and maybe keep up with some of the comments. We'll do our best, making no promises, but we'll allow the viewer and listener to be active as a part of the show, which makes it cool. That's why I always love doing live radio or streaming, as it were. Just a quick blurb about me. I've been doing the broadcasting for over 40 years now. So I did talk radio, I did rock and roll radio, and of course, I've hosted a couple of my own podcasts, including the aforementioned Del Beccaro and Hook with my buddy Tom. So this is I'm not a newbie here, but it's good to be with you, and I hope you can bookmark us every Wednesday and Friday, 4 p.m. Right here on X American News, and of course, all those other platforms that you can find us on. Speaking of X American News, we've got a lot to talk about in this very first segment. And that's the wonderful thing about a Trump presidency. There's always a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to kind of dissect. So I figured, why not bring the two co founders, kind of put this thing together, X American News. Michael Lauber is a show host. His show, and it's a great show. And I was fortunate enough, Michael, to do a show with you. And I appreciate it. The Insurrection. What a wonderful show that is. And of course, our buddy Derrick Evans. Derrick is a former, he's a former West Virginia House member, a Jan 6th prisoner, political prisoner, and an outspoken fella and a great patriot. So, guys, welcome to both of you, man. It's wonderful to have you. How are you doing?
Well, thank you for having us. Another day in paradise over here, even if it is a little chilly for my taste. But yeah, thank you for everything that you've done too, both on X American News and your whole career out there, helping sound the alarms and wake people up.
Yeah, well, the good news is, Derrick, it seems that people are waking up. A lot of them have woken up, and Democrats are in complete meltdown panic mode, and no doubt some rhinos are as well.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having us on, Steve. Really appreciate it, man. And you're exactly correct. I mean, people are starting to wake up right now. I think what's interesting is those of us who are, kind of follow this, we live, sleep, eat, breathe this. I think some of us are even, I don't know about shocked, but maybe shocked to be confirmed on some of the things that we had. I can only imagine being one of these normies right now, one of these people who have just been minding their own business, living life, and everything's just fine. And they're hearing all these things for the first time. It's really a big bucket of cold water being dumped on these people.
Yeah, it is. And the thing that I find so amusing about it is I've been screaming from the rooftop like with my hair on fire for the past 5-6 years. And I was shot, oh, you're a vast right-wing conspiracy nut job. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. This is well beyond conspiracy. Try and walk them through it. Kind of try, it's like leading a horse to water, trying to and finally now they're coming to grips with the fact that, holy cow, maybe Steve was right. Maybe all these Trumpers aren't so crazy after all. But, guys, the thing that I find so amusing is some of them, and we've got a clip later that I can show that kind of proves this point. Some of the electorate, some of the citizenry has woken up, a growing number of them. That's what freaks out the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that won't wake up are as locked in as they could possibly be. Now, it's a smaller and smaller shrinking pool of them. But what do you make about these absolute Trump is Hitler? We're watching the birth of the Fourth Reich. I mean, this kind of BS. What do you think about all that, Mike?
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, it clearly isn't working. There's just another segment from CNN this morning with them freaking out that Trump's popularity continues to increase. Approval for his agenda as it rolls out continues to increase. And this is growth among normies. The left is losing people left and right. We've talked about this like dozens of times now, but the popularity for Trump and the Republican Party is at a record high right now. And popularity for the Democrats and their agenda is at an all-time low. And that's because they've just embraced this LGBTQ trans nonsense agenda in every aspect possible, between indoctrinating your kids in schools, putting men and women's sports, and everything else. And it's also they're out there now trying to defend all this fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge has uncovered. They act like Elon Musk is really the president and Trump's just standing. He's just keeping the desk warm for him. But nobody's buying their BS anymore. It's just not working, and normies are waking up too. And I think this is after this last election cycle where they did immense damage to their media network. They will never recover. Yes, CNN's lost over 40% of their viewership. MSNBC's lost 60% of theirs. Both networks are on the chopping block to be sold now. The propaganda machine broke down. It got so bad, like you said, just with this nonsense that your average person in the middle doesn't believe it. They see reality in front of their eyes, and they saw that almost 90% of the coverage on Trump was negative, almost 90% on Kamala was positive. It became very clear that they were just a tool of the deep state, just a propaganda wing. They are Democrats masquerading as journalists, as Rush Limbaugh used to say. And this, I think, has moved people out of the middle. Basically, they dug a grave when they sided with the invaders, these illegal aliens that have swarmed our country, and the trans movement. That was the death nail for the Democrat Party. They don't appear to be changing or coming to grips with reality, and their numbers are going to continue to shrink as more and more of them just have to check into mental institutions.
Yeah, well, they're definitely pulling their hair out right about now, and it is funny they dipped into that well so many times, Derrick. I mean, and the people have watched this. This is the thing that I think that is lost on some of these hard lefties. For 6 straight years, really more if we're honest, but for 6 straight years at least, America's attention has been focused on a couple of things. Trump is either Hitler, or he's a big con man, or he's a fraud. He's just and they keep going to it. And then we find out that Russia collusion was a hoax. Then we find out that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. Then we find out that Fauci lied about COVID. Then we find out the border. Guess what, Mayorkas? The border was not secure. So you can only hit people in the face so much with what's obviously happening in front of their eyes before people stop believing you. And that's what has happened to Michael's point. That is what has happened to the media.
Oh, it is, and that's exactly what's happened to the left in general. I mean, this whole thing with the way that they do that, and they basically pee down your back. They try to tell you it's raining, and they can only do that to people for so many times before they're going to stop listening to that. And kind of the same thing right now is happening as we speak with President Trump called Zelensky a dictator, and the left is all upset. They're calling Trump all these names. They're defending Zelensky. Could you imagine if Trump said that he was going to induct martial law and was not going to have an election, what the left would call it? He would be a dictator. They would be right to call him a dictator if that were to happen. They call him that. And then you got Zelensky out here really doing dictator things, and the left is defending that. It just really shows their hypocrisy. I'll tell you, though, we're at a place right now in this country that I think is very unique, and in the sense of, to you guys' point, most people are waking up to this. Even I think there's a huge portion of people out there who have not come out and actually said that they're distancing themselves from the Democrat Party. Just I'm talking about normal people out there, but quietly people are leaving because they see the truth. Their eyes are being opened. But on the other hand, to your point earlier, Steve, is you've got some of these people who will never, ever, ever be convinced of anything other than what they currently believe. Those people are scary. And the reason I say that is, with all this rhetoric ramped up about calling Trump all these names and pushing all these fear-mongering tactics of how dangerous he is to our country and even to these people's lives, they really believe that. And I believe that puts us in a very dangerous place in terms of some of these whack jobs going out here and doing something evil, all because they were brainwashed to do so by the media. So I think it's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. It's scary. It's scary to be able to see that. And I really do have a hard time understanding where people can absolutely have, and I've met some of them, and they will just flat out tell you, if you believe anything you've been told about Trump on the positive, you are a Nazi. You are a homophobe. You're a xenophobe. You're a racist. You're a bigot. You're a classist. You're an ableist. You're all of these ists and isms that we're going to throw on you. And by the way, you're also filled with hate. Which is kind of ironic because they really do hate Trumpers. The only hate I see really coming from anyone, most people that I know that are even ones that are kind of marginally following what's been going on with the Trump administration thus far, are cheering, saying, oh my God, he's actually doing what he said he was going to do. And the ones that aren't are being ramped up like Chuck Schumer and his like, that are getting on the floor of the Senate saying that, oh, they're coming after your Social Security, all this crap. To Michael's point, they don't want Doge because they don't want to get their devil's purse strings cut. What do you think about that, fellas? Is that what it really
Well,
comes down to?
I'll just quickly say, Chuck Schumer's out here, and they keep saying, "Oh, Elon Musk, these people is a security risk because these people have access to the security codes." The last person that they trusted with the security codes was that man pretending to be a woman who went around and stole people's luggage out of the airport. So I don't think that they have any leg to stand on in terms of what they're deeming as qualified to be in control of the nuclear codes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, their whole party is filled with these genetic freaks, and the American people are tired of it. We're tired of this nonsense, having to pretend a man is a woman, and vice versa. We're not having it anymore, and I think those illegal immigration and this trans nonsense are the two things that have murdered the Democrat Party. But right now, like, their extreme hypocrisy, imagine having the audacity to go out and say that you don't want a larger tax return or a Doge dividend of $5,000 per person as of right now, because you'd rather keep that money in government and spend it on trans operas in Lithuania and whatever other just nonsense they can dream up. They'd rather to let Fauci keep abusing and harming puppies than they would return the money to the American people and expose all this fraud. And I think part of the reason we're seeing so much fear from them right now is, and Tim Burchett said this just the other day, that this is just the first step. When now that they have control of these systems, they start linking things back, they're going to figure out who's been profiting from this, what elected officials and other appointed officials have been benefiting from this waste, fraud, and abuse. How much has traveled back into their pockets from kickbacks from Ukraine and numerous other nations. Zelensky said he didn't receive all this $350 billion. I'm tending to maybe believe him. A lot of this may have been laundered well before it made it there, and they don't want to be exposed.
I agree with that 100%. I think that there's all kinds of, you just look at some of the net worth of some of these leading Democrats. And by the way, it should be said, this is really both parties. I think Mitch McConnell and his wife, Elaine Chao, probably have some explaining to do. Mitt Romney probably does. God knows Lindsey Graham probably does. And some of these people I don't want to see go down because I don't want them to be exposed as the frauds that we kind of suspect that they already are. But now that's coming to a head. You got Chutkin, not a friendly judge at all to Trump, came out and said, hey, Doge is perfectly within their rights within the executive branch of digging into these books. There's nothing, you can't show me any reason why they can't do this. And that's got them completely petrified. And to Zelensky, here you have a president who was a part-time comedian. Trump calls him a dictator today. 2 hours later, he calls himself a king. He's sending them in conniptions in every possible way. But let's talk about Zelensky as dictator. He's working 6.5 years into his 5-year term because in 2022, he declared martial law. He's outlawed 13 separate political parties inside Ukraine. He has had people that were in the Ukrainian parliament arrested and they've never been heard from again. You've got publications and reporters and whatnot that are getting arrested and rounded up. He's acting an awful lot like a dictator. Trump's not doing any of this stuff, by the way. He's just calling Zelensky out for it. So, Derrick, that must mean that he's Trump's a dictator, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly how they're doing this. Zelensky's good. They're defending him, and they call Trump a dictator. And you just now laid it out perfectly as to to who the real dictator is in all of this. It's unbelievable. Also, there's rumors, reports, if you will. I've not done any research to confirm this, but Trump said it as well, for the record, that Zelensky's polling in single digits, like 4% or something. Obviously, Zelensky's going to deny that, but either way, his poll numbers could not be great when you think about their countries being torn apart right now. They're losing all these people. They see and know what he's doing right there. They know all this money's being sent to Ukraine, and none of it is being seen there on the ground. His poll numbers could not be very well at this point. But to your previous point, I want to add, and I want to agree with you that Republicans are just as guilty for everything that we find ourselves in right now with the $36 trillion in debt, just as guilty, if not more guilty than the Democrats. At least the Democrats ran on a platform and admitted that they didn't care. They just wanted to run up the debt, where Republicans ran every 4 years, every 2 years, pretending that they were going to be good stewards of your tax dollars. Even if there was no fraud, which we know that there is, but even if there was no fraud, just the sheer incompetence by the Republicans who have allowed this sort of government waste and abuse, at the very least, to get us to this point, every single one of them should resign in disgrace for allowing this to happen on their watch if they voted for any of these things. This all got here from these giant omnibus bills, these CRs, all these things that Republicans have caved on year after year after year. Any of the Republicans who caved on that, they should resign in disgrace for doing so.
Yeah, well, I tell you, the thought of that almost worries me, because I fear that if that were to really happen, if all of a sudden they not only grew a pair but grew a conscience, we might not have a government.
That's true.
Hey, I think that would be better than this corrupt government we've got now. This Elon Musk called it the other day. He called it, it's not a democracy. We live under a bureaucracy, and that's what it is. And this is all clearly intentional. I mean, how do you have millions of people receiving Social Security checks that are over the age of 120? Nobody checked on this. I mean, I could understand a few being on there. If they had run the audit and there were 1,000 people over the age of 120, I would probably assume that this is partially, some of them are probably fraud, and other ones are probably like data entry mistakes. They queued in somebody as being born in 1850 instead of 1950. When you have millions, it seems intentional, especially now when we've tracked these down, and a lot of them are going to overseas accounts and whatnot, and nothing is done about it. $4.7 trillion that ran through the Treasury, where they didn't attach what bill it went to, or assign things out so we could then trace back this money and make sure it was being spent on what it had been appropriated, and it wasn't being illegally spent. I mean, this is our money. These are basic measures that should have been put in place, that already were put in place. That these are failures, people not doing their job, and they want to cry about all these federal employees that are getting cut. Well, it's because they're useless. So many of them are not doing their job. I know everybody's going to jump out and defend their buddy that works for government that does a great job and their heart's where it's supposed to be and blah, blah, blah. But we all know that the vast majority of these people are just useless. We also know a lot of them, while they were sitting at home for the last 4 years, most normal human beings had to return to work. We know a lot of them were double dipping, doing other things with their time other than their job for the federal government. Yeah. And now it's come to pay the price for that. Again, they're trying to, reach for sympathy right now, just like they are with the illegal aliens that are here, make people feel sorry for them, but it isn't working because people see the other side of the coin. Not to mention, I mean, these people, I can't believe they have the audacity to post some of this stuff to TikTok and don't understand. They just look like complete fools when they're driving back to their job at the federal government one day and they puke all over themselves because they're just that worried about, having to actually go in where somebody can watch them and make sure they're not violating federal laws while they're there at work.
That sounds like a TikTok video I have yet to see, but yeah, they are kind of bitching a little bit too much, aren't they? Oh, gee, wait a minute. You mean I have to get in my car and actually drive to work? I got to go inside the Beltway? I understand you not wanting to go inside the Beltway. I hate it every time I go there. When I leave, I wipe the dust off my feet and get the hell out as quick as I can. Yep. But these people took a gig with the federal government. It pays them a whole hell of a lot of money. Apparently, some of them a lot more than others, if we can believe some of these Doge numbers. And then, of course, they get pension for life. And so now they're pissed that people are going to come and take a look at it. You're right, though, Michael. It doesn't make sense to bitch and kvetch about it. What you should do is say, you know what? I want to prove my worth and my value by going in and being the best public employee I can be. But at least some of them don't have that on the radar, I guess.
Here's what gets me on this. Like, I totally get it. It's completely human nature. They have an awesome gig right now going on. That, to your point, they're working from home, working, nobody overseeing them. They're getting paid really good. They got good benefits. I could see that, they're like, man, this kind of stinks. I can go back to work now. This is over with. I could see you talking to your spouse, your brother, somebody, family member, saying, this kind of sucks. I go back to work now, complaining about it. But to actually make a video of ranting and throwing a tantrum over doing what the rest of the country has to do every single day to put food on their table, to make a video about that and post it is like next level for me in terms of just how crazy these people are.
Especially given the fact that you're looking for sympathy from the people that are paying your salary. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? Good God, get over yourself. And by the way, maybe you want to dye your hair back from pink, blue, and yellow and all that crap. It's
Yeah.
just it's funny. But you know what I do think, fellas, and this is and I kind of want to see where your head's at with this. A little bit later in the program, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. I know Derrick, you can't stay with us the whole time. I mean, he's got a pack full of kids running around upstairs, so I get that. But Michael, we'll get into it with you. But while you're still here, Derrick, what Trump is doing here in the United States, and I would say he's been doing it for about 7 years now. But what's really happened, especially since November, you're starting to see this Trumpian populist agenda start to migrate. It's starting to be imported. Germany is going through a big election cycle. The ADF, that media calls it, oh, they're far rabid right wingers. Well, no, they're not. They just are more conservative, and they think maybe we should get rid of some of the immigrants that Angela Merkel destroyed Europe with. I don't think that's anything racist, or I think it's just saying we're Germans and we want to be, make Germany great again, I guess. But we see it in Argentina. We're seeing it growing in pockets of Central and South America. Probably, I imagine, Asia too. I'm not completely well read on it. But Trump's populism is taking fire around the world. Is there something to that, you think, fellas?
I do. I think that everybody across the world looks to America, obviously, and I think that sometimes we forget that as Americans, we kind of live in this little bubble over here, and we kind of forget that there's all these other people across the world who look to us not as individuals, but as the beacon of freedom, if you will, and hope and all those things. And so I think when Trump won that very first time, I think it sent shockwaves across the entire world because it wasn't like a third world country of electing an outsider. This is America, the country that all these other people across the world are looking to. And then not only that, then you have President Trump, not on the national stage, but on the world stage, out here talking about freedom and individual liberty and all these things, the deep state, if you will. And I believe that there was a lot of people across the world who were looking for someone to say these things and do these things in their area because they were feeling the tyranny as well. But in those systems, in those situations, somebody speaks out there, they're liable to get assassinated or something. I don't know, so they can't do that as much. So I think that it was almost like a rallying cry for the entire world for people to say if there was ever a time for you, you Joe Schmo living over in this other country, if there was ever a time to start pushing that narrative in your own country, it would be to ride the waves that President Trump is currently making on a global scale. And I think that's what you saw. I think it became contagious, and people were said, this is our opportunity to actually, start having these conversations in our own country.
Well, certainly Milei would agree with that in Argentina. And look what he's done for that country. Absolutely turned it around. If you want an abject lesson in capitalism versus socialism, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, I would tell you to look at Argentina and then compare it to Venezuela. It's a polarly opposite. And yet here we are. And now we're starting to see it. You mentioned some of the crackdowns and stuff. Look, in Germany, you can get arrested for saying something, an insult to somebody else online. They can come and arrest you. I've got a video clip. Maybe you guys heard about this 60 Minutes last
Oh, yeah.
week. It was a disgrace by American standards. It's a disgrace. But and then in Australia during the lockdown, COVID lockdown, hell, if you walked out to your mailbox and got your mail, a cop would drive by and say, "Get your ass inside."
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden people are starting to throw that off and say, well, wait a minute. Here's a guy. He's like a bull in a china shop, no doubt about it. He's boisterous. He can be a little bit arrogant, but you know what? I don't judge him on that. I judge him by the results, and the results speak for themselves. And I think people are starting to say, well, why am I getting shouted at for walking my dog without a mask on in Sydney? I don't know, man. I think people yearn for freedom and liberty, personal liberty. Michael, what's your take on it all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this actually goes back even further. I think this goes back to Brexit and Trump's first term. That's kind of where this fire was lit, this global movement towards freedom. And we've only seen it expand since then with Nigel Farage, Reform UK. Whenever they have their next set of elections, he's now ahead. He may not even have to form a coalition government. They may be able to just take charge on their own. National Rally in France, Marine Le Pen, her party, they're poised for massive victories there. And we see the same thing. The left is apoplectic. AUR in Romania, they just had an election stolen out from under them by officials in the EU. EU is talking about getting involved in Germany too if AfD wins as many seats as they're supposed to, because I think they're at 22, 24% of the vote, something like that. But they have a party now. coalition now under them. But yeah, we're seeing this here and around the world, like you said, throughout South America, throughout most of Europe. Things are changing. People are tired of this globalist nonsense, the democratic world order, or democrat economic order, whatever you want to call it, that we've lived through since really the end of World War II. We've seen the direction that's taking us. It's getting worse and worse with the WEF and the WHO meddling in every country's business. People have had it. They want to rule their own lives and not bow to some globalist or foreign national entity that wants to tell them how to live.
Yeah, no kidding. So needless to say, Klaus Schwab and of course Soros and all of those and all of the lackeys that make up the WEF, they are having a very bad month this month, and it seems to be only getting worse. To Derrick's point about to your point, I wanted to, if you think that, is this going to be Donald Trump came in and he won the electoral vote. He won the popular vote. He won every swing state. Almost every city that he ran in that was purple ended up being red. What about his coattails? Is JD Vance going to ride this in? I mean, I know we're really early into it, but you know that the left is freaking and they're planning on what's going to happen in 28. Do you think that this is going to hold? And what do you think the chances of these coattails being very long are? In other words, how long are the Democrats going to be wandering the political wilderness, I guess?
Yeah, well, I don't think that President Trump would have chose a VP that he didn't plan to endorse and pass the torch on to. And obviously, I don't know that. But I mean, if you're looking at it from his perspective, I'd imagine he chose J.D. Vance with the intentions, if everything goes well, that he was going to endorse him in 2028. And so I've seen enough from J.D. Vance already early on, from the time he was announced as VP till now. He's definitely has a bright future, and I would definitely support him if he decides to run for it. And then on the other side, I believe that the Democrat bench is very weak. We're seeing early polling right now that's showing Kamala Harris as leading the Democrat primary. I hope so. I'll tell you, I don't think that Republicans could ask for anything better than a J.D. Vance versus Kamala Harris showdown in 2028, because I think that one of the things that really helped Trump in this go around was a compare and contrast campaign, if you will. Like, you had 4 years of Trump, you got 4 years of Biden. Which do you want more? So I think that the next campaign, if that's the showdown, is going to be another compare and contrast campaign. And I think that even the average voters who maybe don't like President Trump would still vote for the next 4 years we're getting ready to have versus the 4 years we just had under the Biden-Harris campaign. So I think that's where we're going with it.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think that the Democratic Party right now is starting to, and you know who's getting this, guys? James Carville is getting it. He gets it. He fully gets it. He's like, I spent all my damn life in this party. I ain't done nothing. Sons of bitches are killing it. I mean, you can tell the faster he talks, the more pissed he is. And he's been talking very fast lately on this. And I don't know that he's going to be slowing down anytime soon, because as we talked at the beginning, these hardened leftists, they have nowhere to go. And for some reason, the DNC doesn't just say, you know what, screw you guys, we're done with you. You destroyed the party, we're done. Will they ever find that out in the last minute or two we've got here, Mike?
No, they're clearly delusional right now, and they're not going to take a step back to reality anytime soon. I think it's going to be a clean sweep for us for the next election. That's why we need to position ourselves with good conservatives. It's time to go rhino hunting. We need to remove as many of these undocumented Democrats as humanly possible and solidify our base. I mean, they just made David Hogg the number 2 for their party. Now, I know that's probably just so they could get the member count right. They probably assumed he was transgender, and you have to have balanced representation for your party leadership. But this guy's the Democrat Party is on like a suicidal rampage right now, and I don't think we should stand in the way of that at all. We should let them continue to make these horrifying mistakes and just laugh at them all the way to the finish, all the way to when they're finally checked into the mental institution.
Derrick, what do you think?
There's no way. There's a massive civil war taking place within the Democrat Party right now, where the left wing, far left wing extremists are actually winning that civil war right now. So to your point, I think that the Democrat Party is going to find themselves wandering in the wilderness until they determine what kind of identity that they want to have. Because right now, the things that they are talking about and pushing, or at least the loudest segment of that group, are not relatable to the average person anywhere in the world, for that matter, not just here in America. They're crazy.
They're crazy. Well, I think that sums it up. That's two words that really kind of drive the point home. And I agree with you. They're kind of going through I mean, if we're going to dip back into American history, we are witnessing the end of the Whig Party. That's what's happening here with the Democrats. And unfortunately, you know what part of the problem is? They're led by the craziest youngins of the bunch, the pronoun crowd. And yet they're ruled by the oldest, deepest rooted swamp monsters
You're not
in all
kidding.
of DC.
Yeah, they're ruled by the people that are receiving Social Security still at 350 years old.
Yes.
And then they've got all these blue-haired moonbats setting their policy, and they wonder why they can't relate to normal Americans anymore. Well, they're not going to figure it out anytime soon.
God. That's absolutely insane. Well, listen, Derrick Evans, listen, brother, I know you got a brood there that needs your attention. We thank you for giving us some time today and joining us on the right hook. Michael Lauber, you're going to stick around for a little while, right, brother?
Absolutely. I'm here.
Yeah, I want
for
to get your take
whatever
on
you
these.
need.
I want to get your take on these 60-minute clips, and then a fascinating clip, and one of those rare times, like a clock is right twice a day. CNN actually reported some real news. I want to get your take on that as well. At any rate, Derrick, thank you, brother. We appreciate you coming and joining us for the inaugural show. Michael, we'll be back with you. Everybody, you're watching The Right Hook, and we'll be right back after this.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed, because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael Lindell. By the way, you should definitely use that promo code HOOK. Call that number 1-800-749-7098. Use the promo code HOOK, and you get the great discount. And I don't know about you, Michael Lauber, but we are a My Pillow household here at the Hook residence. We all use the My Pillows. I love them.
Buy yourself their slippers. Those are the best. I've had a pair for a couple of years now. I heat my house mostly with wood in the wintertime. When I got to get up in the middle of the night and like throw logs on the fire or whatever, they're a godsend if my dog needs out at 3 a.m. when it's 4 degrees outside.
Yeah, they're great slippers. Everything, you can go to mypillow.com or mystore.com and take advantage of the great savings. Okay, Michael, thanks for hanging in, brother. We really appreciate you being here. I wanted to get to some of these clips because I was I wouldn't say I was shocked to see that CBS would go down this path with 60 Minutes, because I think 60 Minutes, whatever goodwill they had ever generated within the public, is gone to people who've been paying attention. Once upon a time, 60 Minutes was actually a great show. Nowadays, it is a political propaganda mill. And when they're not doing anti-Trump, whether it's 60 Minutes Evening News or a CBS Evening News or the CBS 60 Minutes program, if it's not hate Trump all the time, it's look at all the damage that this freedom is causing in Germany.
Yes.
Now, this has been getting a lot of attention because it's pretty staggering, but I want you, Annie, let's just go with cut one. Watch this, Michael, and we'll weigh in on it after that. It's cut one.
The criticism that, this feels like the surveillance that Germany conducted 80 years ago. How do you respond to that?
There is no surveillance.
Josephine Ballon is a CEO of Hate Aid, a Berlin-based human rights organization that supports victims of online violence.
In the United States, a lot of people look at this and say this is restricting free speech. It's a threat to democracy.
Free speech needs boundaries. And in the case of Germany, these boundaries are part of our constitution. Without boundaries, a very small group of people can rely on endless freedom to say anything that they want, while everyone else is scared and intimidated.
And your fear is that if people are freely attacked online, that they'll withdraw from the discussion.
This is not only a fear, it's already taking place. Already half of the internet users in Germany are afraid to express their political opinion, and they rarely participate in public debates online anymore. Half of the internet users.
Okay, now
she didn't mention what half, did she?
No, and that's just my point precisely. This is what's so funny about this. Now, from an American's perspective, everything she just said there is upside down. I get that nobody wants to get hate online and nobody wants to be threatened online. We get all that. There are other laws to deal with that, though. But you don't crush free speech. Now, in Germany, rather, she said right there, she goes, it's in our constitution. Germany still feels a lot of guilt and probably should for what they did about 80 some odd years ago. But you don't stop Nazism by becoming Nazis when it comes to free speech and freedom of thought. So she says half of all internet users in Germany won't even comment on politics, as if that's a good thing. That's a good thing to them. So you don't have freedom, but she makes it sound as if the reason they won't discuss this online is because they were afraid of what a tiny minority. I would say they're probably afraid of getting arrested. Maybe that's why they don't comment.
Well, yeah, and that's the real villain in this is them. I mean, let's be honest. Some people deserve hate for things they say or do in the real world. If that comes from a Facebook comment on a politician that let unlimited immigrants, invaders come in from the Middle East, and now you've got mass stabbings and people getting run over every other weekend to deal with. Yep. Maybe they deserve some of the criticism that they're getting, but no, our media too would tell you, their little lie about this was, free speech. Well, that led to the Holocaust. And again, no sane individual is going to believe that. It's just sheer stupidity. But that's what they're trying to hide behind, is somehow they know better. It's the nanny state. They can't allow these hateful individuals to counteract their narrative.
Well, exactly right. And once you start becoming the thought police, I mean, to sound cliche, I don't mean to sound cliche, but it's true. Who polices the police? Who polices the thought police? Well, what they're going to say? Well, I'll tell you what. Better, Andy, do we have time for the next clip? Because I can just play that one right now. Okay, good. Let's do that. Andy, now this is kind of goes to your point, I think, and my point for that matter. Check this out. This is later in the same blurb there from 60 Minutes. Go.
It's illegal to display Nazi symbolism, a swastika, or deny the Holocaust. That's clear. Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes. The fine could be even higher if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
that sticks around forever.
Yeah.
The prosecutors explain German law also prohibits the spread of malicious gossip, violent threats, and fake quotes.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well, because the reader can't distinguish whether you just invented this or just reposted it. That's the same for us.
The punishment for breaking hate speech laws can include jail time for repeat offenders. But in most cases, a judge levies a stiff fine and sometimes keeps their devices.
How do people react when you take their phones from them?
They are shocked. It's a kind of punishment if you lose your smartphone. It's even worse than the fine you have to pay.
Because your whole life is typically on your phone now.
Isn't it funny how they all just chuckle about that? That's just so funny. I find this, again, now by American standards, that seems absolutely absurd. Yet, Michael, that seems to be the position that this 60 Minutes segment was promoting. Maybe we need to do that here. Maybe we ought to do that. Maybe you should be arrested in the middle of the night.
Well, that's what they'd like. I mean, they already tried this and failed with the whole censorship campaign from the Biden regime and from our federal government, the DOJ. This really only ended because Elon Musk bought Twitter, and then I think as they continue to lose their grasp on power, as these leftist parties continue to fail and falter, and real right alternative parties start to pop up, they're going to get more desperate. You will see more arrests from the thought police and more stricter and stricter laws about what you can say online. They're, like I said, they're already talking about flipping and nullifying this election if AfD wins in Germany. Like, they are terrified of the changes they're seeing in Europe right now.
I mean, it really is. And it's staggering. And you're right when you talk about what happened here. I mean, look, Elon buys Twitter, the left melts down. Elon decides to look into the left's books, the left melts down. The left can't, if the old adage is true that sunlight is the best disinfective, well, then I'd say the vampires are on the left because they don't want any sunlight on anything they're doing. And you take a look at here's an example. When the Twitter files first dropped, Michael, you'll recall it was Michael Schellenberger and it was Matt Taibbi, and it was Barry Weiss, as I recall, the
Yes.
three that were, by the way, all three of them former liberals. I'd say they probably would identify as libertarian now if pressed. They wouldn't say they were liberals anymore, but they would probably say libertarians. Certainly, I know that's true in the case of Matt Taibbi. But look what they did to Matt Taibbi. Matt Taibbi gets notified that he's going to be audited, and then he goes and speaks before Congress, and while he's sitting down and being sworn under oath, they raid his house.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's like they're proving his point.
Yeah. Well, and that's what they want. Their own little private Gestapo, their political police to shut down any opposition, even if it comes from somebody on their side, from a good place wanting to expose this clear corruption that's going on. That's why they're freaking out about Doge right now, too, because it's cutting off all their funding. The American people won't give them money, but, hey, we can get Congress to go write $260 or $280 million worth of grants for George Soros's Open Societies Foundation. And same behavior we're seeing over and over again. Same with like all these judges who either their foundation or their wife's foundation was getting money from USAID or from other entities within government. They're afraid the gravy train's going to get cut off. And when it does, the American people are going to be angry, and they are not going to forgive them before this next election.
Yeah, boy, you're not kidding. We have a Department of Education that doesn't educate, a Department of Energy that provides zero energy. I mean, it's, and there's bucket loads of waste, fraud, and abuse. And did I mention fraud? A lot of it. And you're right, they're scared to death. Listen, we've got to take a short break. Michael, when we come back, I want to kind of follow up and just kind of put a cherry on this idea of exporting Trumpism, because Trumpism seems to be kind of catching the wind. Whether the left likes it or not, it doesn't much matter, because they're proving him right in so many ways, this election coming up in Germany notwithstanding. So let's take a short break. We'll come back. I got one more clip, that CNN clip. I want to get your take on that. You'll probably get a kick out of it. You're watching The Right Hook, and we will be right back with my friend Michael Lauber right after this.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. anything, but I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfthestudio.com.
There you go. That, by the way, that is our producer, my producer, and yours too, Michael. Annie Cyrus. Annie, God bless you. Somebody go do us a favor. Go buy some art from Annie. It's all one of a kind. It's wonderful stuff. Lots of patriotic themes, maybe some religious themes. Go to the website and help her out. That's how we get the show paid for God's sake.
That's right. It's lutfstudios.com.
There you go. And you saw you can use the promo code HOOK just like you can at MyPillow, and you can get a discount on it. So go get that stuff. All right, Michael, let's get back to this, because this is when we played the 60 Minutes stuff. What I find so fascinating about Trump isn't really even what Trump does, because what Trump does is he chums the water for these trolls, and they don't even realize they're being played. When you're calling Zelensky a dictator, you know you're going to ruffle some feathers, especially amongst the hawks. And by the way, this is in both sides, Democrat and Republican. I'm sure Lindsey had a fit when he said that. But then he says, oh, wait a minute, he is a dictator. And it can be proven that he's acting dictatorial. And then he says, I'm the king, but basically using that old Time magazine cover of him looking like a king. And he slaps back Kathy Hochul in New York City. For those of you who don't know, in New York City, in Manhattan, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, has posted what she calls congestion zones. So that means that if you're going to drive in that part of New York, you have to pay sometimes $9 just to drive across a street. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it crushes people who have to go into New York and work. Because what she wants, what Kathy wants, is she wants everybody to ride the subway that we see people get mugged at and thrown in front of coming trains and whatnot.
Yeah, set on fire.
Yeah, set on fire. Just stuff like that. And she wants everybody to do it her way or the highway. Trump comes in and says, congestion pricing is dead. I have saved New York. I'm paraphrasing here. And I have saved New Yorkers. Long live the king. And then he posts a picture of the Time magazine cover with him wearing the crown. And this is Trump just trolling these people.
Yeah.
But what I find more fascinating is the way they respond to it. They don't even realize, they don't even know they're getting played, I don't think.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're super serious people, not to be joked around about. This is entirely uncalled for. Only a heathen would do this. After all, Kathy just wants to save the environment. And I've heard that congestion pricing was as much as $16 for one stop driving through the city. But yeah, again, and I have trouble believing they're that congested with all the people that left, and especially with all the illegal aliens now abandoning the city now that ICE is doing raids. I saw a bunch of their sympathy pieces about that this neighborhood's now dead because 1,000 illegal aliens abandoned ship, and this poor bodega is now going to go out of business because all his clientele went back to Waziristan.
Yeah. This bodega who's been here for 45 years is now gone. What? Wait a minute. How does that make sense? But yeah, that's, of course, you're going to play those pieces. Well, like I said, CNN was caught doing something that they rarely get caught doing, and that is reporting the news. There's a couple of people at CNN that the Jennings guy, he's good, but most of them are just completely corporate lapdog media types.
Yeah. Jennings and Harry Enton, they're both great. They both will commit the random acts of journalism just to save CNN's reputation.
Yeah, as Rush might say, drive-by journalism at CNN was spotted today. I want you to see this, because we can talk about how big the Trump influence has been on the electorate here at the home. And I kind of mentioned that this is being exported now. You're starting to see this form of populism and you mentioned many countries. But watch CNN break down these numbers. It's pretty startling. Go.
Donald Trump and the Republican Party has changed the electorate. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at party identification, Democrats versus Republicans. You go back to 2017, 5 points more of the electorate was Democrats than Republicans. You go to 2021, when Joe Biden was starting out, look at that, 6 points more of the electorate was Democrats than Republicans. But look at what's happened in February of 2025. Look at this. Republicans, there are more Republicans in the electorate than there are Democrats. Republican +2. So Donald Trump and the Republicans have remade the electorate. They've turned some people over from being Democrats or independents to become Republicans. New folks have entered the electorate who are more Republican leaning. And so when you combine that with the fact that Republicans are really, really behind Donald Trump, all of a sudden you get a winning recipe whereby you break the normal rules of politics and give Donald Trump that positive net approval rating when he had pretty much a consistently negative one in term number one. As I said at the beginning, he's copying Frank Sinatra, doing it my way.
Wow. There's a lot to digest in that, and I think some of it is probably even lost on the guys reporting it. And that is, it's not just that Trump. That's an 8-point swing, by the way, folks, in 4 years. That is cataclysmic if you're a Democrat. But it's also cataclysmic if you're a media talking head, because all of a sudden you realize, wow, 4 years ago they believed us. They don't believe us worth a damn now. They don't believe us at all, do they?
No, this is something we've talked about, and yeah, that was Harry Enton right there. They hate this guy now, but he cares about his reputation. He wants to tell the truth when he aggregates all this data. And again, this is using sources that lean left too, so even they can't hide the fact that Trump's popularity has spiked. But yeah, they're over with. They're done. CNN's had, like I said earlier, a 40% hit in viewership. They're not coming back. The normies don't believe them anymore. They lied so much during these last 4 years that it became blatantly obvious, even to people in the middle, that this is not a valid source to go get your news, that these are just Democrats masquerading as journalists. They're there to be the deep state's cheerleaders. And there's no getting your reputation. It's hard enough to get your reputation back if you accidentally tell a lie in media, but when you continuously lie and spew this venom, that's why nobody cares about them anymore. Nobody cares what their opinions are, and we're just not going to listen.
Yeah. And the problem that they have, too, is, as much as cynical as this sounds, the media is big business. Yeah. And big business for them has always been to be the whatever position Trump takes, we're going to take the exact opposite. And then the results start coming in, and then election results start coming in, and then Doge accounts start coming in. And then people start waking up to the fact that, well, wait a minute, maybe it wasn't a bat from a wet market that spread COVID. Maybe Fauci's NIH was involved in this. Geez Louise, maybe all of a sudden, all of the lies start crystallizing in front of people. So the Hunter Biden laptop was legit? What? Are you kidding me? Well, of course it was legit. And people that were paying attention to what was going on and shouting it from the rooftops were inexplicably banned from Twitter. My account was banned. I hardly ever even tweeted, but it was banned. And that happened to millions of Americans. And then, of course, we get the Twitter files and all that's followed. I don't know. We can talk about the political parties, the political party, the Democratic Party wandering the wilderness. And I wonder how long it's going to take them to get it back together. But this media, I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, yeah, they can't exist in an ecosystem that has real competition. They're used to having a lock on whatever the narrative is through the whole media apparatus, not just CNN. It's Politico, it's the New York Times, it's AP, it's everyone else that just echoes the same talking points that are handed down from on high from, whoever writes them down from Barack Obama. And the minute there's a crack in that facade and alternative media started to pop up, they were done with. It was over for them because, and especially today with, again, Twitter being active, Facebook being less restrictive now. I mean, I think Zuckerberg will turn on a dime again and go back to the way things used to be, but they're seeing the writing on the wall. They know that they will not exist if they don't adapt to where the ecosystem is now of open information. That narrative control is over with. And I don't think the mainstream media can exist in an open environment where they have to actually debate the other side and can't just put up their talking points and propaganda. I mean, there's going to be a sliver. There's always going to be a segment of the country that's what they want, is just to be indoctrinated and propagandized and propped up and told to think all their beliefs are going to come true. But that's going to be 15 to 20% of the country. They can park themselves with Rachel Maddow and whoever else over there on MSNBC. But otherwise, like, if these media networks don't change the way they're doing things, they will not exist by the next presidential election cycle.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, their approval ratings are lower than whale crap at this point, and I don't know why they haven't adjusted. I suspect it's because most of these outlets are owned by corporate giants, and these corporate giants have their own agenda, and therefore, if it suits them to lie, hey, we take a beating on MSNBC, who cares? We also own a Comcast, so big deal, or whoever it is. I mean, they're all it's no longer just journalists for journalism's sake. It's journalism for narrative driving sake. It's journalism for pushing the agenda forward or pulling the agenda back, whatever it may be. And I think that the American people, thanks in large part, Michael, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke, but in large part because of outfits like Ex-American News and these podcasters and conservative talk radio, of course, has had a huge role in this. But people are starting to have way more options. They're using those options, and they're finding that, hey, you know what? I tend to believe these guys a little bit more than I do Lawrence O'Donnell, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're going to continue. Yeah, well, I mean, you're exactly right, and you're going to continue to see the alternative media grow. And thank you. I think like that's what's going to make companies like ours, like Ex-American News, and many others out there continue to grow over the next few years. I mean, the other problem that the dinosaur media is facing is the fall of cable companies. More and more people are cutting cable at their house, which means less people have direct access. It's not being pumped into their brains anymore. CNN lost their contract with the airports. So, I mean, now the only people watching these networks are coma patients in hospitals that can't change the channel, and then the moonbats that are already going to go out there and vote for them and do whatever they want. So they have no upside, no gains, and alternative media will continue to grow. Something I've noticed, especially over the last few weeks, and this is where our other big battle is going to be winning the culture war. But you're starting to see that too. You're starting to see people aren't afraid to speak out, even on middle of the line normie podcasts. And I've seen a few people now do this, come out and either talk about Democrats wanting to cover up fraud on just mainline, middle of the road programs that never even touch politics.
Yeah.
They've become a joke. And that also is not going to turn around. I mean, that's got to be our next big battle. As long, we need to support Trump for the fight in DC, but we also have to start retaking the culture. I'm tired of these trash movies coming out of Hollywood or being mocked by retards on Saturday Night Live. I mean, this is their 50-year anniversary. They should have done, 20 years since the last time we were funny, or 30 years now since the last time we were funny. That's what it should have been.
Yeah.
But the more they do that, and the more they slap their base in the face and expect us to come back and then worship their altars again, it's just not going to happen.
I agree. Michael Lauber, thank you for joining me on the first ever episode of The Right Hook. I really do appreciate it. We'll definitely have you back. Everybody, make sure you tune in to Michael's show, The Insurrectionist, on Ex-American News. Thank you for joining me today. We'll be back Friday at 4 p.m. Thanks for joining us on the inaugural edition, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.